picture this. You're sweating. You're swearing under your breath.
Oh, I know where this is going.
Right. You've got a plastic cup in one hand, maybe a stiff piece of junk mail in the other,
Yep, the classic setup.
and you are lunging at your living room wall, just entirely focused, totally stressed out, because you were trying to catch a spider.
We have all been there. It is so chaotic.
It really is. It's frustrating. And it requires this sudden, just massive exertion of energy. But what if I told you that all of that frantic movement, all that direct, aggressive action is actually the worst possible way to achieve your goal?
It's completely counterintuitive.
Exactly. So welcome to today's deep dive. We are taking a really fascinating look at the philosophy of effort.
And we're doing it through what has to be, easily the most minimalist piece of source material we have ever covered on this show.
Oh, without a doubt. It is incredibly brief. We are basically looking at a single digital screenshot today.
Just one solitary screenshot of a very basic, unadorned digital notes app.
Yeah, and at the top of the screen, there's a title. It just says, How to Catch a Spider. And below that, there are just 4 short lines of text.
18 words in total.
18 words. That's it. And then floating somewhat awkwardly right below those words, there's this little automated user interface button generated by the app.
It just says assign styles.
Right, assign styles. And that is literally the entire universe of our source material today.
But the wild thing is, within those 18 words and that single digital prompt, we actually find a remarkably complete, surprisingly deep philosophy.
We really do.
It's all about how we exert effort, how we practice patience, and how we interact with the environments around us.
It's a masterclass in extreme minimalism, honestly.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to unpack every single syllable of this tiny digital artifact.
Because it completely challenges our everyday assumptions about achieving our goals.
Whether that goal is literal pest control or, managing a complex project at work.
Yeah.
So we invite you to just settle in and join us in this hyper-focused exploration.
Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting right at the beginning. The first 2 lines read, How to catch a spider. Turn on the porch light.
Which sounds so simple.
It does, but I have to push back on this premise right out of the gate.
Oh, really? Let's hear it.
Well, it's the verb to catch.
Yeah.
Because culturally, linguistically, physically even, when we hear the word catch, it implies an aggressive, active exertion of energy.
That's true. It's a very active word.
Right. If I say, I'm going to catch a baseball, I am running. I'm tracking it. My muscles are firing. The word demands action.
And sweat.
Exactly. So if the objective is to catch a spider, the immediate mental image is that chaos I described earlier.
Yeah.
You're trying to overpower a fast-moving target with your speed and your size.
You're exerting direct, concentrated force.
Yes. But the instruction here, turn on the porch light.
Yeah.
Just walking over to a wall and flipping a switch feels like a total contradiction to the very definition of the word catch. It just feels so passive.
But see, what's fascinating here is exactly that friction between your expectation and the instruction.
What do you mean?
Well, the text is fundamentally redefining the concept of capture. It is completely dismantling our baseline assumption that a successful action requires a physical exertion of dominance.
Okay, I'm listening.
When you are running around with that plastic cup, you're engaged in active pursuit. You're fighting the environment, trying to corner an unpredictable variable.
Right, the spider is zigzagging everywhere.
Exactly. But this text suggests a profound shift, a shift from direct action to indirect environmental control.
But wait, environmental control sounds great in theory, but it relies entirely on assumption.
How so?
If I am physically chasing the spider with a cup, I know exactly where it is. I have agency in that moment. I am controlling the situation, or at least I'm trying to.
Right, you feel like you're in control.
Yeah, if I just turn on a porch light and walk away, I'm surrendering all my agency. Isn't that just hoping for the best and pretending it's a strategy?
It definitely feels like surrendering agency, but you are actually just relocating your agency to a higher leverage point.
A higher leverage point.
Yeah. You aren't hoping for the best. You're leveraging biological inevitability. Let's break down the mechanics of the porch light for a second.
Okay.
By simply turning on that light, you aren't engaging the spider directly at all. You are merely changing the conditions of the broader ecosystem.
Just by flipping a switch.
Exactly. Think about the physical cascade of events that a single bulb initiates in the dark. The light cuts through the darkness. And almost immediately, that light attracts moths, mosquitoes, smaller flying insects.
Because they're biologically hardwired to navigate by light.
Right. And what do spiders naturally seek out?
A concentrated, reliable food source.
Exactly. You haven't touched the spider, you haven't chased it, you haven't triggered its fight or flight response. You've just created a localized ecosystem that the spider naturally, instinctively wants to inhabit.
Wow. So instead of chasing the target, you are just altering the stage.
You're manipulating the conditions so the target comes to you.
You're designing an environment that does the heavy lifting for you.
That's it, exactly. And if you think about why this matters to you, the listener, it introduces an incredibly vital concept about how we navigate friction in our daily lives.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about how often we default to the plastic cup method in our careers or our relationships.
Oh, man, all the time.
We try to force an outcome through sheer willpower. We micromanage a challenging team dynamic at work, or we try to brute force a new personal habit just by trying really, really hard.
Right, just gritting our teeth and pushing.
Exactly. But this text is asking us to consider that the most effective way to interact with a complex system isn't to wrestle it into submission.
It's to step back.
Step back, analyze the ecosystem, alter the environment, and let the outcome happen as a natural byproduct of those new conditions.
You design the conditions for success rather than sweating and straining to create the success itself.
Yes.
That is a massive paradigm shift. I mean,
Yeah.
it takes the frantic adrenaline out of the equation completely.
It really does.
But, having set that environment, having altered the ecosystem, flipping that switch is actually the easy part.
Oh, for sure. It's just a physical motion.
Right. The hardest part of this entire process is what comes next, because the text doesn't stop at the like switch.
No, it doesn't.
And this brings us to the second half of the note, where the narrative pivots drastically. Lines 3 and 4 say, and wait for it to catch itself.
The true challenge of the instruction is right there.
It really is. I was thinking about the mechanics of this, and it feels to me almost like a form of conversational or strategic judo.
Judo. Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, you know how in martial arts, like judo, the whole foundational philosophy is that you do not use your own brute strength to throw an opponent.
Right, you don't meet force with force.
Exactly. If a larger opponent is rushing at you, you don't push back with equal force because you'll lose. Instead, you use their own momentum, their own weight against them.
You just subtly redirect their energy.
Yes. So they effectively throw themselves. And that is exactly what is happening in this text. You aren't doing the catching. You've just created this perfectly illuminated invitation.
And the spider's own nature, its biological momentum, cannot resist it.
Exactly. The trap is completely invisible because the trap is just the spider being a spider.
That is a great analogy. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the invisible trap is built entirely out of predictable behavior.
Right.
But let's look at the specific instruction you're given as the human architect in this scenario. Wait for it.
Ugh, the hardest part.
The psychological weight of those 3 words is immense, because the true work in this entire set of instructions isn't flipping the switch. The work is restraint.
Yeah, we really need to unpack why restraint feels so agonizing for most of us. Because waiting for it goes against every modern instinct we have.
It really does.
Think about the world you and I live in right now. It is a world of constant, unrelenting hustle.
Oh, absolutely.
We are fundamentally programmed to believe that if you aren't moving, if you aren't visibly sweating, grinding, and producing tangible friction, you're failing.
We want the dopamine hit of taking action.
Yes. We want to check the box right now.
And our modern metric for value is deeply tied to visible exertion. If you tell a manager that your strategy for solving a complex problem is to adjust the starting conditions and wait for it to resolve, they will likely view you as lazy.
Or just totally negligent.
Right, because waiting for it feels like doing nothing. It lacks the optics of hard work.
Exactly. It lacks the optics. If I'm running around the room with a cup, everyone can see I am working on the spider problem.
You busy?
Yeah, I'm busy. But if I turn on the light and sit on the couch, I look indifferent.
But according to the strict logic of this text, doing nothing is the crucial active mechanism of success here.
Right.
Patience is essentially weaponized. It's not passive waiting, it's active restraint. You have to actively suppress your urge to interfere.
Because if you do interfere, you ruin it.
Exactly. Every time you go to check on the porch, every time you open the door to look, you change the air pressure. You cast a shadow. You disrupt the very environment you just designed.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You have to give the ecosystem the necessary time to do the work you designed it to do. The porch light only works if it's paired with the slow, unglamorous passage of time.
It requires an enormous amount of trust. I mean, you have to trust that the biological rules of the moth and the spider are going to hold up. You have to trust the system.
And that's so hard for us.
It really is. It's
Yeah.
almost like we have this cultural allergy to letting things unfold at their own pace. We demand the one-click delivery, the instant result, the immediate gratification of a caught spider.
We want it now.
But this text is almost ancient in its wisdom. It feels like something a Stoic philosopher would write on parchment.
Yeah.
Design the environment and then yield entirely to the nature of things.
You're acknowledging that the subject operates on its own clock, not your on-demand schedule.
Right.
It's a very deep understanding of the natural order.
But, and here's where it gets really interesting to me, this is not written on ancient parchment,
No, it's not.
which brings us to the final visually jarring element of this source image. We have this deep, almost Zen-like observation about natural order, weaponized patience, and environmental design.
And where does it live?
Right.
Right.
In a sterile default font digital notes app. And floating right underneath this profound four-line poem is a little gray digital user interface button that reads Assign Styles.
The contrast between the organic subject matter and the digital medium is just quite remarkable.
It is a total collision of worlds. You have the raw, organic, messy reality of bugs and porch lights and the slow passage of time. And it's literally sitting right on top of a sterile software prompt offering to change the font or bold the text or add a drop shadow. It's
Yeah.
such a bizarre juxtaposition.
It really is.
So what does this clash between the natural wisdom and the digital interface actually tell us about the thought itself?
Well, I think it synthesizes the nature of the entire artifact for us. That little UI element assigns styles. It proves definitively that we are looking at a raw, unedited draft.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's a fleeting epiphany captured in the moment. The phrase assigns styles implies that the thought hasn't been dressed up yet.
It hasn't been formatted.
Exactly. It hasn't been made palatable or pretty for an audience.
It's just the raw data of a realization.
And that highlights a fundamental truth. The core wisdom of these instructions, the strategy of altering environments and practicing patient restraint, it's so inherently strong that it does not need a style to be effective.
Right.
It is pure, unformatted wisdom. The physical truth of the porch light does not change if you put the text in a beautifully flowing cursive font or if you just leave it in the default system text.
It doesn't matter if it's bulleted or italicized.
Exactly. The mechanics of the universe simply do not care about your presentation.
Wow. The mechanics of the universe do not care about your presentation.
Yeah.
That is a hard pill to swallow for a lot of us.
It is.
It essentially means that the universe is indifferent to our formatting. If the underlying mechanics of what we are doing are flawed, like if the porch light is actually turned off, no amount of bolding or italicizing the text is going to catch the spider.
No, it won't. And I would ask you listening to this right now to reflect on that assign styles prompt as a metaphor for your own daily life.
Oh, that's good.
How much of your day is spent clicking that metaphorical button? How often do you worry about the style or the presentation of your actions rather than the core mechanics of what you are actually doing?
We see this everywhere. Think about the sheer amount of energy we spend making sure our work looks a certain way.
Or that our efforts are visibly recognized by others.
Right. We will spend 3 hours formatting the margins and color-coding a spreadsheet trying to make the data look sophisticated.
Instead of spending that time questioning if we are even tracking the right data in the first place.
Exactly.
Right.
We tweak the transitions on a slide deck for a presentation, hoping the slick visuals will mask a weak core argument. We curate our personal image on social media, styling our lives to look effortless, while behind the scenes we are completely exhausted.
We prioritize the optics over the operation. We seek the illusion of productivity that styling gives us, because tweaking a font feels like work.
It does.
It provides that immediate dopamine hit we talked about earlier. You can see the font change instantly. You feel like you accomplished something.
But setting an environment and waiting provides no instant visual feedback.
Not at all.
Meanwhile, the raw, fundamental mechanics, like simply turning on a light and having the discipline to walk away, are what actually get the job done.
Yeah.
We get so caught up in assigning styles to our lives that we forget to design our environments. We're too busy picking the perfect font to notice that we are still physically exhausted, running around the living room, chasing spiders with a plastic cup.
And that is the ultimate danger of prioritizing style over substance. The text of the note sits directly above that UI button, almost ignoring it, as if to say, the unvarnished truth is right here. You can decorate it if you want, you can make it look professional or artistic, but the decoration will not catch the spider.
Only the environment and the time will.
Exactly.
It's just wild to think we pulled all of that insight from 18 words and a little gray button on a screen.
It really is a lot to unpack.
So let's summarize the journey we've just taken through this tiny digital artifact. What started as a simple, almost throwaway note about turning on a porch light evolved completely in front of us.
It did.
It transformed into a blueprint for indirect action and environmental control. It showed us the quiet, incredibly difficult, weaponized power of patience and active restraint.
Yeah.
And finally, it reminded us of the immense value of raw, unformatted ideas that don't need a fancy style presentation to be universally true.
It serves as a potent reminder that true clarity and effectiveness often come from stripping away the unnecessary actions and the stylistic facades we build around our work.
So what does this all mean for you? As you go about your week, we want to encourage you to take a hard, honest look at your own life, your own projects, your own interpersonal stresses.
Where are you currently exhausting yourself?
Right. Where are you running around the room, metaphorically swinging a net, trying to force an outcome through sheer willpower and visible friction?
You need to identify where you're chasing spiders.
And then ask yourself how you might achieve significantly more by doing less. How can you simply change the starting environment, turn on a porch light, and find the courage to just wait for it?
This text raises one final important question, though.
Oh, what's that?
Well, we have spent this entire deep dive analyzing these 18 words from the perspective of the person turning on the light.
Right, the architect.
Exactly. We've confidently assumed the role of the architect, the one designing the environment. But if the spider is caught merely by following its own natural biological instincts toward the newly illuminated ecosystem you created,
Yeah.
you have to ask yourself, what porch lights are you blindly walking toward right now, simply because someone else flipped a switch?